steel, wood, and flame. The tools of medieval torment did not only break bones, they broke desire itself. Imagine descending into a damp stone chamber beneath a castle, where the walls weep with moisture, and the air stinks of sweat, blood, and smoke. Torches spit against iron brackets, throwing jagged shadows across racks of instruments. Some are shaped for the wrist, the ankle, the throat, but others, grotesquely, unnervingly, are shaped for the most intimate parts of the human body. A prisoner is dragged inside, shackled and trembling. Before them stands a hooded figure carrying a device not designed for swift death, but for slow humiliation. This is where sexuality itself was weaponized, where pleasure was transformed into punishment, where shame was carved into flesh. In the Middle Ages, sin was not simply confessed. It was torn from the body, inch by inch, often through the very organs that symbolized lust. The obsession with purity, especially sexual purity, ran deep in medieval Europe. Lust was branded as the devil's whisper. Women were taught they were Eve's daughters, gateways of sin. Men were warned that desire itself could condemn their souls. Yet paradoxically, the same society that preached chastity invented torture instruments that struck directly at the groin, the breasts, the mouth. It was a culture that feared sex so much that it could imagine no greater punishment than to pervert and destroy it. The chastity belt remains one of the most notorious symbols of this fear. Though many surviving examples are fakes crafted centuries later, the myth itself reveals a terrifying mindset. Women locked in iron underwear, urinating, menstruating, even giving birth through jagged holes, while their husbands rode to war. Whether or not real belts were ever forced onto women, the very fantasy of such control speaks volumes about how sexuality was viewed as something to be imprisoned, shackled, stripped of dignity. Far more real, and far more nightmarish, was the pear of anguish. A cold, metallic fruit with petals that could be cranked open once inserted into the vagina, anus, or mouth. Turning the screw spread the petals, tearing flesh and breaking bone. It was reserved for those accused of sodomy, abortion, or adultery. This was not just pain, it was symbolic desecration. Where intimacy belonged, only agony remained. The breast ripper was a cruel invention aimed specifically at women. Shaped like iron claws, it was heated in the fire until glowing red, then clamped onto flesh. Some models worked as pincers, tearing both breasts away entirely. Women accused of adultery, infanticide, or witchcraft were mutilated in ways that attacked not just their bodies, but their identity as women, mothers, lovers. The message was unmistakable. Stray, and your very femininity will be destroyed. Equally chilling was the scold's bridle. An iron mask locked over the head, fitted with a spiked gag that pressed against the tongue or throat. Any attempt to speak sliced flesh, drawing blood. While used on nagging wives or gossiping women, some bridles featured phallic protrusions, turning punishment into grotesque parody. The victim, paraded in public, was forced into silent submission, a spectacle of sexual humiliation as much as discipline. Then there was the Judas cradle, a sharp pyramidal wooden seat upon which the naked prisoner was lowered, anus or vagina first. Ropes controlled the descent, forcing the body to stretch open around the point. The torture could last hours, even days. Muscles convulsed, infection set in, and the victim was left suspended between agony and collapse. Here, the body's most private passage became a stage for public suffering, a theater of degradation. The wooden horse, also called the Spanish donkey, brought yet another layer of humiliation. Victims were stripped and forced to straddle a sharp-edged beam, often with weights tied to their feet. The edge bit into genitals, thighs, and buttocks until flesh split. What resembled a crude child's toy was transformed into one of the cruelest devices of sexual torture, mocking desire through unbearable pain. The iron chair, a seat embedded with hundreds of spikes, added a cruel twist. Victims were strapped naked, every movement driving spikes deeper into skin, especially against thighs, buttocks, and genitals. Sometimes hot coals were placed beneath, heating the chair until flesh blistered. It was not just punishment, but spectacle. A person reduced to writhing, shredded meat before the gaze of judges, priests, and crowds. Lesser known, but equally grotesque, was the heretic's fork. A simple metal rod tipped with two prongs, one pressed beneath the chin, the other against the chest or throat. Strapped in place, it forced the victim's head up, unable to speak, swallow, or rest. Some versions were fitted lower, pressing into the groin, preventing movement under pain of penetration. Victims of heresy or blasphemy were left suspended, awake, drooling blood, silenced by an instrument that mocked both prayer and pleasure. The testicle crusher was a vice-like device that did exactly as its name suggests. It compressed the genitals slowly, pulverizing them into pulp. Sometimes heated, sometimes nailed directly to wooden boards, it turned masculinity into a site of agony. Castration had long been a punishment, but in the Middle Ages it became a prolonged theater of sexual destruction. Legends also speak of the Iron Maiden, a towering sarcophagus lined with spikes. Victims were locked inside, the spikes piercing flesh without killing instantly. While historians debate whether it was truly medieval or a later invention, its myth carried unmistakable sexual undertones. In popular imagination, the spikes targeted breasts, genitals, and organs of fertility, transforming the coffin into a perverse womb of punishment. The Catherine wheel, a massive breaking wheel used to shatter limbs, was sometimes eroticized in its brutality. Victims, stripped naked, were stretched across its spokes, their bodies twisted into unnatural shapes. Executioners and chroniclers alike lingered on the spectacle of exposed flesh, blending death with voyeurism. Sexuality and violence blurred until they were indistinguishable. Even humiliation devices carried sexual weight. Men accused of adultery or weakness were forced to wear towering cuckold's horns, paraded through streets to the laughter of crowds. The punishment was symbolic castration, a stripping away of sexual authority. For women, humiliation often came through public nudity, forced bathing in icy rivers, or mock marriages to animals, all designed to mark them as deviant, unnatural, sinful. All of this reveals a chilling truth. Torture in the Middle Ages was not only about extracting information or punishing crime. It was performance, a sermon made of steel and fire. By attacking breasts, genitals, tongues, and mouths, torturers struck at the very symbols of desire. Pain was not random. It was targeted, symbolic, designed to tell a story. That lust was dangerous, that the body was corrupt, that sex itself was a battlefield where the church and the state fought for control. When we look upon these devices today, rusted in museums or sketched in manuscripts, they repel us. Yet they also fascinate. They speak to an age that feared desire so deeply it built monuments of cruelty to destroy it. Even if some were myth, the fact that they were imagined tells us everything about medieval minds. In their fantasies, they revealed their terror, that lust could not be tamed, only tortured. Picture again the dungeon, the hiss of torches, the iron stink of blood, the creak of wood beneath a victim's weight. Imagine the silence broken only by screams echoing down stone corridors, while outside a priest recites prayers for purity. In that darkness, sexuality was not freedom. It was a trap, a sentence, a reason for suffering. Some histories are remembered, but others are abandoned.